Alright, watch out. Okay, front sprocket change. Why do we do this? Well, it's pretty straightforward. Now, I'll show you. I've done this a couple of times in the past, and I want to do it again today on the general. It's that time. It's come round to be done. So I've gone out and bought a front sprocket. It's ever so simple, 18 tooth front sprocket. It cost me £12, 12 quid. Not expensive. Now, why do we do it? Okay, I'll show you. Got a little demonstration. This is a piece of leftover chain. So this is your motorbike chain. All right. Bear in mind, the front sprocket is a third of the size of the rear sprocket, so it turns 3 times more often, so wears out 3 times as fast. It's not hard, is it? So because of that, we have to change that one, because that one will wear out first. The rear sprocket and the chain will be in perfectly good order, but your front sprocket's worn out. When people don't realise this and they neglect the front sprocket, it ends up wrecking the chain. That's the problem. That's why we do it. There's a sprocket from the Bandit, and that wasn't that bad. That's only done 10,000 miles. Already, where's the front? That's the front. Already you can see by looking at the teeth on that they're hooked over. You can see them. They're hooked in that direction, aren't they? Ever so easy, isn't it? And that was only 10,000 miles. Had I not changed that, in another 10,000 miles, they'd be literally sharp on the end. And then they start breaking off. That being, even in that state, causes excessive wear to the chain, and I'll show you how. This is quite simply a brand new sprocket. When it goes into the chain, the teeth and the little holes mesh nicely together. Very simple, and they're snug. And that little snug gap, everything's happy. When it gets warm, on the other hand, you get this. They're actually bigger. Even if you push that right the way in, there's still this. Let me show you it. Hang on. You see this going on? It's rocking. It's kind of going like that. Basically, the V, the groove there, is way too big for that little roller. Now, what this does, quite simply, as that wears out, because it turns 3 times more often, blah, 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 these rollers here, these little rollers there, the teeth go into them with more impact because there's a gap there. So as you open the throttle, the sprocket tries to turn, the teeth go whack. They're in there with an impact rather than a nice snug fit that just turns. So that impact wears these rollers. It wears them out unnecessarily, prematurely. So if you just take 5/1000th of an inch off each one of those rollers all the way down, 110 links or 100 links in a chain, add it up. It's ever so simple, isn't it? It's mathematics. You'll soon end up with ½ an inch of stretch in the chain. And there's the word that is the biggest misconception: stretch. Motorcycle chains do not stretch. They simply don't. What happens instead, we think they do, and we assume that these plates here are physically elongating. That's rubbish. They're not. What happens is all these little rollers, they get narrower in diameter by the impact from a knackered front sprocket. That then cumulatively adds up and the chain becomes longer. You feel it, it gets more slack, and it's getting more slack because as it goes round on the sprockets each end, it's got all this play. And you can see it in a worn out chain because you pull it off the back of the rear sprocket, go to the rear sprocket, go to the back edge of it, pull the chain off, and if you can stick a biro in that gap or a pencil, it is worn out. It really is. You shouldn't be able to get that off the sprocket more than about 4 or 5 mil. You certainly shouldn't see daylight through it. So what we can do is if we take a brand new sprocket with nice fat teeth and we put that into the chain that's done 10,000 miles, we repack those gaps out, don't we? It's not hard, is it? You repack the gap so the gap doesn't get that impact that's doing the damage. That's a lousy tenner. Chuck it. No problem. That's the cheapest component you can put on your chain and sprocket set. The chain itself is about 80, 90 pounds and the rear sprocket itself is 20, 25 pounds. So it adds up, it really does. Now, a well-maintained chain, just spray lube, adjust it every 2 or 3,000 miles, you'll get a good 25,000 miles out of it these days. They do last well. Chain and sprockets, it does. A neglected one could be half that, 12 or 15,000. My friend Dave Dyson, he put up a video on his channel of an R1, a Yamaha R1. We saw it outside a cafe, we pulled up and there it was. It had stalactites of rust hanging off the chain and sprockets. It was dry, it was so dry it was horrible to look at, and this bike was about a week old. Horrible neglect, and it will cause problems. And here's the warning folks, it's quite simple. A badly neglected chain, that's only 10,000 miles. When they get to 25,000 miles, the teeth start snapping off. They actually break off. Then you get gaps, and that can jump the sprocket, that can jump the chain effectively, or the chain can jump the sprocket. Bear with me, it's been a long morning so far. And because of that, that can then cause a catastrophic accident, because once the chain parts, once that one gear tries to go in between two, there's no room. What happens is one of these plates will separate, or a pin in there, one of these pins will snap, chain separates, doing speed. It can lock the rear wheel up, it can smash up the engine, go rocketing up into the engine casing and smash it all up and lock it. And worse still, it can hit you at speed on the back of your leg and cause the most horrible injury. Don't even Google it, they're just nasty. So, chain sprockets must be maintained, it's a safety issue. So front sprockets are a very simple change, doesn't take long to do, and once you've done it, you will elongate the life and the lifespan of your chain and sprockets. And I would imagine if you took the absolute care of your chain and sprockets and you ran a Scott oiler, like I do, and you maintained your chain meticulously, real OCD, and you change these sprockets out every 10,000 miles or so, you should be able to expect 40,000 miles out of a chain and sprocket set, easily, without any difficulty at all. And that's half the life of most motorcycles, isn't it? So if all you have to do in your motorcycle's entire life is change one chain and sprockets, I think that's pretty good maintenance and therefore extremely worth doing. Okay, so before I get started on this, I've got to clean it up. The back of the General is in a right old mess because the chain oiler does do that for you. It's a very simple task. You pull the wheel forward, make yourself some slack, and you can change the sprocket without taking the wheel out. It's a very easy job you can do yourself at home, but I've got to clean all that crap off first. So I'll give you some music to listen to while I'm doing it. I will change that, clean it all up, get it ready to come in, bring it up, strap it on the bench, and I'll show you how we change that new sprocket, put that one on, and that's the first one. Bike's been 10,000 since its chain was fitted. That's the first one on its life. Okay, take it easy. Now's the little fun bit. Now this nut will always be hellish tight. They don't just come undone. They've been done up. Obviously this one was done up probably with a windy gun by a mechanic in a workshop, which means you won't get it off just with a straightforward socket or spanner. 36mm as well, so you need tools to fit. I always use one of these, big old 36mm ring spanner, loads of leverage, but unfortunately you have to hold that still, and I'll show you the method. First of all, take that wheel out. You don't have to take the back wheel out to change the front sprocket. If you've got an impact wrench or some method of getting that undone in situ like that, then you can just push the wheel forward. Push it all forward as far as you can to give yourself all the slack you need, but I don't have that available to me. So I'm going to drop the wheel out and show you another little method which works real well. Right, so as the old saying goes, just whip the back wheel out, whip the axle out. Always take note of your spacers. Always take note of where the spacers are. Chain out of the way. So that spacer there, very important. Make a note of not only where it is, this side, but also the orientation. You can see the clean bit goes inside the seal, the dirty bit doesn't. Ain't hard, is it? And then the other side. That's it. Right, okay. With the wheel out of the way, I'll show you a trick. Here's the simplest way to hold your chain still. Alright, pop the axle back through the bike. Lift the chain the other side of the axle. Put the axle in. And just loose the nut on so it doesn't ping out. Then you've got the chain over the axle. Right? Tighten it along the top because you're going to rotate that way. It undoes counterclockwise or anti-clockwise, so you want to tighten the top piece. So you simply pull the chain to the end, wrap the chain round, coming close, hang on. Let's bring you in on this. Where's Penny Pit Stop when you need her? Let's get you in the angle. Right, get the chain on top, wrap it round the axle like that. So you've literally wrapped it round the axle, then with a screwdriver, pin the chain. Pin it from the top. Look, it goes through there real easy, right? It doesn't cause any problem. It's not dangerous, not causing any issues. It's not damaging in any way. Take a screwdriver, an old one, drop it down through the top, push that as far forward as you can, and then pin the chain like that through both the top and the bottom, like that. And there you've literally pinned that chain to the axle, so it ain't going to go anywhere. And I'll show you how that works, or what that does on the front. But before I touch the camera to move it, it's going to wipe some of that up. Right, so on this, now the amount of these over the years in the workshop that I've seen, they come in and they're chewed to pieces. All the edges are chewed off, and the reason is, it's very important to hammer this washer right back, as far back as you can onto the face of the sprocket. Don't just pin it out the way so you can turn it, because if you just do that and you have it at 45 degrees, you'll find that you can't get the socket or spanner completely on it, and you'll only get the edge. And these are tight. So with it pinned, as you can see, big old spanner, 36mm, come in there. And what I always do, with a little tiny hammer, just get some impact going on. Get it all the way down onto the nut, as much of the nut in contact with the wrench, socket or spanner, whatever you're going to use. And then lift, give it all the pressure you can, at the same time as hitting, there it goes, like a little impact driver. And there it is. Now, if it won't come, then put a bar on it, a longer bar, and then with loads of pressure on, just tap, 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 and it will crack. And there it is. Off it comes. All right, nice and intact. No chewing up, no beasting. All right, preserve the washer. You'll see that's a toothed washer, so that it doesn't turn. It stays in conjunction with the shaft, which is why when you fold it over, it holds the nut still. And now that can come off. Right, so take the screwdriver out the back of the chain. Loads of room here, and that can now just be lifted free. Here we go. A little wiggle, and there she is. Right, let's give it a clean up and compare it to what the new one looks like to see how much wear and tear this has suffered in 10,000 miles. Literally about a millimetre of wear, but almost none. So what we've got there, as you can see, that sprocket, that's the old one, is still in good condition. And if you can see, the old one's, where are we? Let's get some light on it. There you go. Right, the old one's behind, new one's in front. And you can see there's almost no wear there, almost none at all. Now it's wrong to think, oh, that's a waste of money then, I might as well have left it there. Not at all, because you don't want to take it off and find out it's in that state. So to replace that, where is it, the old one? That's the old one, there it is. To replace that one at this point is good with a brand new fresh one, because there's almost no wear, which means I've caught it before it started doing any damage. Right, let's put that one on. Okay, it's not sided. Nope. Let's pop it on that side. Make yourself a space. Pop it on. With the washer, got to clean up at this point so it goes all the way home. Now, make sure that the washer locates isn't off the end, and that involves making sure that the sprocket is right the way home, all the way on, so that you can get the teeth of the washer located as well. Then the nut goes on top. Right. Now, question, doing this up tight, that rotates forward, so the nut going on that way is always going against. It will never undo itself, only ever do it up. And I know there's a torque setting, but I haven't rehearsed it, so there we are. What we'll do is pin the chain underwards this time, or underneath, underwards, who are they? Pin the chain again at the back. That gives me a doing up stiffness. Now all I tend to do with them is using the full length of the tool there. What's that? 13-inch long ring spanner. All the way on, and just give it that much. That's it. You don't need to swing on it, monkey boy, you really don't. It's not necessary. All it will do is make it impossible to get off, and you'll have to cut it and start doing all sorts of damage. Now, obviously, tab washer. So, keep the pin out so it can move. Come into there. So there we are. Front sprocket changed. All these now do is stick the back wheel in, put it all back together. Right, there we are. Now I've set this up, as you can see, a little looser than you might do. That's because it's a tall bike, adventure bike, and they run a little bit more sag in the chain because there's a little bit more drop. I think we go back to a video we did before about the more that the chain drops, the more it straightens, so the more it tightens up when the bike is on full compression. So at the moment, that's what it was like before. With the weight on the bike, with Penny Pit Stop sitting on the back and me in the luggage, I get about that much slack, which is correct. But then when you get everything off the bike and it drops and the wheel's off the ground, you're into that territory. So I measured this earlier. There's the end of, there's the little rubber chain guide. There's the end of it. It was just 5mm off it all the way. So measuring that, that's where it was set before, job done. I could always adjust it later and offset the alignment too. Right, casing back on. Take the trouble to give that a clean out. All that scaz that was in there earlier, that's just chain lubricant and grit, which is of no use to you whatsoever. So make sure everything's done in there. Casing back on. There we go, right. That pretty much is it. Save one thing. I'm going to show you, I'm going to oil the chain. Now we cleaned this earlier using brake cleaner. That is bone dry, so that's no good like that. Even though we've got a Scott oiler, there will be a period of that when it's operating bone dry, and I don't like that. I like my chain to be lubed all the time. So I'll show you what I use, and I'll show you how I use it to make that first lube before we start again. Okay, so here's the final part of the regime. We dried out the chain, completely bone dry, so so I didn't get too dirty, but I think it didn't work. Anyway, the chain's now completely clean. There's no grit or cack on it, and this is okay for the winter. Now what I use in the Scott oiler itself here, and also to lube the chain, is that. I've always used that. There we are. Just chainsaw oil, 30 weight chainsaw oil. Chainsaw oil because, like, this is a Scott oil bottle. That was about, I think that was about £10. I can't remember exactly. But that's about the same price as that, quantity for quantity. So you get like loads and loads and loads and loads. Did I say like then? Right, okay. So come around to the measuring and splitting. And all I'll do, if you might be able to see it, I don't know if you can, but I just put the chain oil above the outside link and let it, you can see the chain takes the oil away. It kind of drags it, because this stuff's clingy and stringy, and it just drags it away. And very slowly I just lay that little strip of oil. Now let me come in closer. You see what I'm doing? So once it's dribbling, just carry that little string of chainsaw oil away, and I just do 2 passes. So there's the measure point, and I'm laying it on top of the O-rings on the outside of the chain to start with. This is the first oiling of a bone dry chain. Doesn't need much, just a little tiny string of that oil in there. It's very clingy indeed, as you can see. It kind of drags it. Then move to the inside of the chain and do that inside strip of O-rings, so they get a good coat on the inside, because centrifugal force will carry it through to the outside. And it lays that oil in there. You can actually see the oil laying in there between the links, which is really nice. So 2 passes like that. A little bit on the rollers themselves, the actual face of the rollers, which is the interface between the teeth of the sprockets and the chain rollers themselves. Side to side, 2 passes. So it properly oils the whole thing. There we go. That's it. That's better. So there we are. Chain's nice and oily, but it's not overdone. Doesn't want to be throwing it off, and there's none on the outside yet, because I haven't ridden it yet. But when I ride it, all this will be oozing out of these joints. So that's what you want to do. When you stop, you want to see these joints nicely wet all of the time, and then check that your Scott oiler, if you run a chain oiler, fingers, check that there is a little drip coming out at the end of that, 1 every 2 minutes, whatever is the setting you use. There we are. That's all set, doesn't catch anything. That's working well. It's even quieter now. It was making more noise when you ran it around before, probably because there's more noise coming out of that casing. Right, there we are. Let's drop it down. Now loads and loads of you have asked about this. It's just a little table jack Just does that, goes up underneath, and the width of its hand, as you can see, it lifts anything up. That was £90 from frost.co.uk. So just go frost.co.uk. They're a kind of British Harbour Freight. Yeah, kind of like Harbour Freight, you know. They just do tools for car restoration and stuff. And that's what it was. It's really handy. It's much better than a trolley jack or anything. Right, so that's it. Everything's off. Let's get it down. Right, so there we are. Front sprocket changed. Was the old one worn? Well, yeah, here it is. You can see the wear on it. Now, that wear probably equates to about, I don't know, 25 thou, whatever. And it shows that it started to wear. These are case hardened usually. So once you're through that, it's a downhill slope all the way. This started to go. It's probably literally that each tooth is probably a mil thinner than it was. But I'd rather change it like that for what they cost and chuck that out than I would mess about trying to change one with hooked over buggered teeth. I really would. And that's going to make the chain wear less. It's already quieter, I can feel it, and it's going to make the rear sprocket last that bit longer as well, because the chain itself is staying nice and fat on the rollers, so that isn't beating that up either. And that gives you a great chance before the winter comes. Was it October now? It gives you a chance to start looking after the bike, give it that once over, clean all the crap and all the stuff off, and make sure it works. So there we are, front sprocket change. You can do it yourself, it's pretty easy. If you get stuck, drop us a comment, always happy to help. If you need any special tools, it's only the big solid nut, that 32 or 36 mil nut as it is on that. I think they're 32 on some other bikes, but they're the kind of single sockets you can buy in tool stores, and they're not a lot of money, £2 or £3 you can buy yourself it. You're going to use it so little, you don't need a good one, you just need one that's fresh. And as you get that on there, you can do it quite easy. Okay, so there we are, front sprocket change, Triumph Tiger, and it is pretty much generic for any chain-driven bike. There's nothing about that was any different to 50 different bikes that run chains and sprockets. Okay, there we go. Thanks for watching. Take it easy, ride safe. Penny Pit Stop back for the next one. See you next time.